Dina, welcome. Thank you so much for being part of the Lockdown Library interviews and for so generously donating your book to the library. The library is just a really simple resource where people can download free books from amazing authors like yourself. So thank you so much. And I've known you for a while. And we've met a few times, and I have to say I've read your book a couple of times. I think your book Smart Parenting is probably the most relevant right now, particularly for some of us in Victoria who are locked down again. So I'm really interested to know, A, what brought you into this field of smart parenting, and then let's talk about the book.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. Thank you for inviting me into the lockdown libraries. Thank you for holding this interview and this space, because I think it's such a valuable resource right now, especially in the times we're in where, you know, we don't know ourselves with kids not having activities and, you know, all the commitments that we normally have on the weekends and weeknights and all of those things are not there at the moment. So there's more bandwidth, and often with more bandwidth comes a bit more reading and finding things that we love to do. So thank you for your generosity in creating this whole space that we can share, and I can share the book with you and all of your readers, all of your audience.
My pleasure. So I know you are a parent, but what kind of brought you into this field of parenting, to be the expert in parenting?
I think the biggest thing, Beck, for me was back when my kids were 2 and 4, I was changing careers. I was a chartered accountant, and I had some high-flying roles right the way through my career in accounting. And I realized that that wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I felt like I wanted to do. And I noticed now, reflecting back, that there were so many times where I would go off onto different projects within my accounting role because they were more aligned to what I wanted to do. I would connect other teams together, and I would help people build relationships, and you know, people that wouldn't normally communicate with each other, help them to communicate and bring them together. And that sort of helped me to realize, okay, maybe I really need to do something else, because I was doing long hours and I was burning myself out, but I wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy. And then I had this incredible opportunity. I was working for a bank here in Australia, and I was working in a leadership position, and I was with the HR director, and he said to me, so Dina, what do you really want to do? Because I was expressing my concern about, you know, I want to change. I don't know what to change to. And I said, you know what, I don't know. And at the time, we were really, really fortunate that the whole strategy for the company was about making people, not fitting people to the role, but fitting the role to the person. And they hired me an external coach. And I got to have this opportunity with this coach, and she said, "Oh, you'd be an amazing coach. Do you want to come and work for me?" And that was my introduction into coaching, and starting to learn about what is it that drives us, what is it that motivates us. And so that started my journey into studying coaching more formally. And as I started to study it, and I went on a coaching experience myself, so I hired myself a coach, so not only learning it, but also applying it to myself and understanding what motivates me, what are my blockers, what are the things that I naturally do that are not, that are creating the results that I'm currently getting, and where am I not liking the results. And so I had gone in with this work context of trying to find my niche within coaching. But what I found after my coaching program was that my parenting absolutely transformed. I started to realize that, because I used to fly off the handle with my kids would drop a little bit of food on the floor and I would just go into rage. Like, my mum's a perfectionist. I've got this history of hardworking. Everything's got to be spotless and clean. You see your face in the sink, shiny sink syndrome, and so that's the way that I was brought up. And And I started to realize that all of these reactions that I was having, there was actually a structure behind these reactions. And I had never known that before. You know, I just hadn't been exposed to that level of self-awareness, that level of, you know, understanding that we create every single behavioral thing that we do on a day-to-day basis, every single one. And understanding how we do that then gives us the power to change it. So I became obsessed with how I was parenting, my own parenting style, and then and understanding that when we create these structures within our own thinking, and therefore the way we react as a parent, that then it can be challenging. Like, you can change it. It takes a lot of effort to change. So then I started to obsess about, well, how can I raise kids to have certain belief structures in place, certain thought structures in place that would support them in their life. So that, and help them to find careers that they love, and help them to carve out their own path. And that's when the book was born, as I started to dig into all of that and start to figure out, well, what are they? What are the cornerstones of what children need, of what we need to actually be able to beat to our own drum, find work we love, and feel healthy and happy within that.
Fantastic. And I think your book at the moment, as particularly for people like me in Melbourne, we're back into lockdown
Yeah.
and back into homeschooling. And I think sometimes we take our parenting style for granted. So we have kids and we go, yeah, I can do this. And we judge ourselves as good or bad parents, as does society. But I think actually taking the time to work out what is your parenting style and be the best parent you can be is vital at the moment.
Yeah, we are so challenged at the moment. Like, it's coming at us from all directions. You know, you've got both parents at home working, trying to fit, you know, the schooling in between working, and, you know, all the dynamics of being working on the dining room table versus working in the bedroom, which is where I am right now, because it's the only space in our apartment that you know, you can work. And then you've got to manage all the noise and the interactions and help making sure everybody's got the equipment that they need, and then of course just the supervision and day to day, just getting through the day. It's incredibly intense at the moment.
Yeah. Well, have you got any idea what are the stats showing at the moment as we go through this COVID and people are at work? Are people sharing those parenting roles more?
So one of the biggest things that I've written about, I've got a book on Amazon called Whose Job Is It Anyway? It's, you know, a chapter in my book, Smart Parenting, as well, is this division of responsibilities. Because I think that one of the things that, as you said, you become a parent and you just jump into it. You think, oh, I can do this. And we often don't step back. And the way that I like to approach parenting is marrying it with leadership. Now, you know, you don't just get born a leader. Most people are not born leaders. We learn how to become a leader. And when you're a parent, you are a leader. Whether or not you accept that responsibility, whether or not you see it as a leadership role, you are a leader. And leaders in every other context get development, and every other context get schools, get tools and resources to help them. So we as parents need exactly the same. And so when we think about two parents co-leading, there needs to be some structure around that. And so one of the distinctions that I like to make is that, you know, parenting is you know, for both parents, it's 100% responsibility. Both have 100% responsibility, and how you then execute that responsibility depends on a variety of different factors. And we were seeing from the census data here in Australia that women are still seeing still doing the lion's share of the work, even though they're working. And interestingly, there were some stats released recently during this time of COVID, and because we're in the home, the stats are still showing very similar, that women are still doing the lion's share of the work. Now, I don't think it's because men don't want to do the work. So certainly in the case for myself, a lot of the reason why my husband wasn't doing more was because, you know, I was driving a very strong perfectionism pattern. I needed things to be done my way. You know, we had never stopped to sit down and talk about what are all the responsibilities that come with kids, because we talk about financial and physical, taking them to activities, and we need money to put food on the table and all of that kind of stuff. We don't talk about, we've got mental responsibilities, you know, they're stimulated, their creativity, all of those. We don't talk about their social responsibilities. We want them to have healthy friendships and healthy relationships with their family. We don't talk about their spiritual responsibilities. You know, we want them to have morals, and we talk about those less than we talk about the physical and the financial. And so as I started to peel apart all of those responsibilities and start to list them out, you know, there were easily 120 of these responsibilities. And when you look at that and you go, wow, so I'm carrying all of this responsibility. And when I run workshops with parents, it always ends up the same. You know, everyone talks about the financial and the physical in their day-to-day, but they don't talk about all the other responsibilities and have them on their radar. So a lot of smart parenting is about being able to bring conscious awareness to these responsibilities, because if we don't, we're just projecting the same pattern as we would in our unconscious roles. So when we look at pre-COVID, post and during COVID, we're seeing that the same traditional same way that we're taking on responsibility hasn't shifted much, even though everybody's in the home and it's still very similar, because we've got these ingrained habits. And if we don't shift the ingrained habits, it doesn't matter if you shift the context. If you're at home, you work, it doesn't matter. It's still, you're still taking those constructs around with you everywhere you go.
So what's one thing that parents can do right now that will make a significant shift or start them on this journey?
I think the biggest thing right now truly is acceptance. So in my book, one of the biggest skills I think that we can have as parents is developing this skill of acceptance. Now acceptance means I don't like it, I don't want it, it is as it is. And we know that in a cognitive knowledge way, but actually embodying that is a different skill. And it takes practice, and it takes deliberate practice to begin with until it becomes quite innate. So let's say you've got, you know, you're at the dining room table working, you've got a child at the dining room table working and another child in the other corner working. And, you know, you're going, oh, can you just be a little bit more quiet? I've got to finish this. I can't think. And you've got this whole dialogue going on in your head. And that dialogue takes you away from the reality of what's happening right now. So acceptance allows you to go, okay, become aware of that thought pattern and go, okay, it is as it is. And it just helps you calm down and then get on with what you've got to do, versus the dialogue that takes you away from the moment, right? So I think that at the moment, it's the best skill that we can cultivate in ourselves is to be able to accept what's happening right now, because we've got very little choice around what's happening externally, but we do have a choice about how we respond to what's happening. And it's not about, for me anyway, it's not about pursuing big grandiose goals and trying to get your skill. You know, initially I was thinking, oh yeah, I get to have a bit of input in my child's education, and all of that just went out the window pretty quickly, because the reality was that we are in a very, 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 very stressful situation. This is extraordinary. Everyone in the world is experiencing this right now. no one's escaping this scenario. No family, no children are getting ahead in their education, or, you know, we are all in the same boat around this right now. And so how we deal with it is an internal thing, and how we are able to navigate ourselves through this process and through this time.
Fantastic. That's such good advice, and such a just an easy way, like you say, when you hear that chatter and you can feel that anxiety building, just being able to acknowledge that and then take a breath and just look at what's actually happening around you is an enormous tool, I think, for most of us at the moment. Thank you so much. So how do people work with you if they want to explore this more, or if parents are really struggling at the moment? How can they get in touch with you and work with you?
Yeah, so obviously the book's in the library there, and that's free for them to be able to go through, and all the resources and how to contact me is on my website, so dinacooper.com.au, and there's Facebook and Instagram and all of those places as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think it's reignited my desire to, as we head back into homeschooling in Victoria for the second time, well, in Melbourne, I'm going to read your book again. One of the big takeaways I got from your book last time was we actually talked as a family about our family values. And what we now do is, if any of us display a behaviour that isn't aligned with those behaviours, we'll actually say to each other, that's not the way we do it in the Bradshaw family. And
Oh.
it's really useful for bringing us all back into this is the right way to behave, particularly when we're all together all of the time. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing your wisdom and for sharing it in the lockdown library.
Thank you
And yes,
for sharing
people,
that takeaway.
if you have any problems with your parenting right now, just, you know, take some responsibility, at least read the book, and it just helps to relieve some of that anxiety. Thank you so much, Dina. It's been
Thank you.
awesome to talk to
Thank
you.
you, Bex.